Thank you very much. This one is working too. Wow. Good morning. Now we're all up and awake. You're looking good, seeing the fact that this is session number 2 and we had a good party last night. 3 cases, 3 countries, 3 very different cases from 3 European countries. You will hear from a very interactive and very innovative case of an audio app in Germany. You will hear from a very interesting and successful podcast project in Italy. And you will hear from someone in the Czech Republic who was opening a Ukrainian radio station without speaking one single word of Ukrainian. So stick around for that. But first of all, we're going to hear from Germany. Roger Hofmann is the Chief Digital Officer of Hitradio FFH, which is the 2nd largest commercial radio station in Germany. And they have invented the Radio Creator, which is an interactive app that lets the listeners choose really what they want to hear. But to tell you more about it and explain it much better than I will ever can, please welcome Roger Hofmann.
Good morning, everybody. My voice is a little bit rough because I had lots of interesting and inspiring talks last night at the radio party. And I learned the challenge that automatic speech recognition systems have in loud environments. So let's start. That's me. I'm responsible for the digital activities of the FFH Media Group. Our company runs 3 radio stations. The main station is Hitradio FFH. It's a full-service adult contemporary format. Then we have a youth format, the red logo, it's Planet Radio. And we have a stream for the experienced listeners, as we say. It's an 80s stream, 80s radio, Harmony FM. And we're very happy that our company has a small research and development department consisting of 4 developers. So we can experiment on nice stuff. And I will introduce the Radio Creator. We named the system Radio Creator, which helps us to enhance the simulcast and produce lots of high-quality internet streams with very little effort. If you want to read more afterwards, you can visit our website. It consists of a few modules. The most exciting one is the replacer. What we do is we take the simulcast and replace the music in the simulcast in real time. So that this way we can produce from one simulcast several sub-channels with the same content but different music. The next what we developed is a play-out system which automates everything a DJ does in a studio to create with little effort lots of internet streams. We are running at the moment over 80 streams for different audiences with this. Obviously, we're also researching in speech. We can add synthetic voices to our streams, for example, to fill in headline news or weather reports or something like that. And the last thing we included in the system is a recommendation engine so that we can recommend the channels suiting best for listeners so that they don't have to scroll through to a long list of 80 streams. So let's start with the replacer. Our intention was to make radio smart and personalize it. The strength of radio, we think, is it's emotional and it's local or regional. What performs very well on our stations is the content. Our listeners love our hosts. They know them. They know in what sports they are interested. They get up with them. They have breakfast with the morning crew. And they come back every day because we have lots of regional and local news. So the content is performing really, really, really good. But the music is challenging. We want to attract an audience from an age of 10 years to 59 years. And That's the problem for the music editors every day. So in 2019, we had a discussion with our music director, and we wondered, what if we can replace some of the songs in 1 hour with other music? And that is what our system does. This is a typical radio schedule, hour clock. The yellow and orange parts is the music, and the green parts is the content, like interviews, news or advertisement as well. And what we do is we keep the content, but we replace some of the songs with songs of the 80s. And now imagine what happens to listening to this station. It sounds a bit older. It's still mixed music. There's also new music in it, but much more of the 80s. And from the same simulcast, we create another stream where we add more chart music, more current music, or more rock. So you can add music as it's good for your station and your audience. At the moment, we're producing at our media group 12 of these, we call it plus streams. At FFH, we add the decades, FFH plus 80s, plus 90s, with more charts, with more rock. And on the right side, you see in the moment, most important one, plus Christmas. It's going really high from November to December. I show you a chart with session numbers. At the 80s radio, we relaunched it a year ago and focused only on the 80s. And with this technology, we're able to satisfy also the users that like to listen to the Swedish group ABBA with Harmony plus 70, or to Backstreet Boys and Harmony plus 90s. And for our young program, we didn't add decade streams. We thought it would be more interesting for this target group to have that they can switch between the moods. So we created Planet Radio plus fun, plus love, plus power, and plus heartbreak. The motivation behind all this is we wanted to meet the music taste more precisely, to reach a wider audience, and to create this way personalized radio with little effort. The staff at the station doesn't have to do anything. The system is running completely automatically. And for the user, there is no interaction needed. They can choose, I'm an 80s boy, I choose FFH plus 80s. And I don't have to skip, to swap and do anything. The program runs with more music from the 80s. Let's see how it works. We always need 3 audio elements to do the replacement. The first green is the first song in this sweep. And while this song is playing, we synchronize the replacement mix and switch. So you can't hear that we switch to the replacement. And then the red one in the middle replaces the green one in the simulcast. That's the song that we replaced. And after that, we mix back to the song that's currently running on the simulcast. And in the middle of the song, we switch back. So at this point, you always don't notice that we switched between the streams. This is an example of the playlist the Radio Creator system creates. The gray marked songs are from the simulcast, and all the other elements are coming from the Radio Creator replacer. Included there is also a music planning software and a jingle and dropper planning software. We use the metadata out of the music planning software, and editors can upload jingles, droppers, promos, and so on, add metadata, and can define rules. For example, this is the plus 80 program, and the system sees the context. If there was an 80 song and the next one is an 80 song, we can automatically add droppers that say something in the way, hey, here is Hitradio FFH plus 80s. There's one more song from the 80s for you. So this way we are explaining continuously what the system does for the user. And we can use every kind of metadata you have in your music planning software. That could be categories, language, sound codes, years, tempo, information, and so on. And you can add simple rules like artist or title separation, but you can also add very complex rules like day parts programming or seasons programming or something like that. This is how it works. This is typically our clock of the 80s Radio Harmony, not in the morning show, it's during the day, so we have a lot of music in it. And what the system does, in the outer ring, the dark green are the replaced songs. And the light green is the song where we mix into the replacement. And the red marked parts, the replacer never touches, so that the news is always in these channels, and also the ads and all the other content or moderation or something like that. When we started the system in 2019, we replaced 3 or 4 songs in an hour. At the moment, the system advanced so that we can replace nearly everything. One of our clients asked us, is it possible to replace all of the advertising in the simulcast so that we get a stream without the ads of the DAB or FM, so that we can sell online targeted advertisement in the stream? So this also is possible and works. Because we are able to replace so much, the system has a possibility to define how many titles should be replaced. This is a block chart, how it works. We feed the simulcast. It's a regular web stream, internet stream, into the cloud platform, and it produces several plus channels from it. For the stuff in the radio station, it's a black box. The host, the DJs in the studio, doesn't even know that there's a system behind it. They don't have to push a button or pre-record something or be aware of moderating music or something like that. So after the first year, we had a look at the sessions. We started in September 2019, and 1 year after we checked this chart. The blue bar is December 19, and the orange one is December 20. So you see FFH plus 80s performed very, very well. And the bar at the right end is what I mentioned before. This is the plus Christmas stream. So in Christmas time, we have on our simulcast about 2 or 3 Christmas songs. And the plus Christmas channel, we can add 6 more. So that's really, you have the content, you know what's going on in our region, but you have a lot of Christmas music. This is what happened over the last years. Now, in 1 quarter, we reached 2 million sessions only with the plus streams, and this is 10% of the total simulcast we have. So for us, this is really successful and helpful. And when we have a look into the target rooms, we can do that because lots of users are logged in our system. About 20–30% of the users use the login, so we have the data, what's the age and what's the gender. And look what happened. In the 80s are the older men like me, and the plus chart attracts younger women. Very important for us was that we are developing a system that works everywhere, not only in our ecosystem. Because it's normal internet radio stream, you can use it on Alexa, on Chromecast, on devices, in-car entertainment, and so on. It works really everywhere. That are the benefits of the system for us as radio stations. The listeners are more satisfied, they are listening longer. For example, on Alexa we have the longest listening time, and the 80s Radio Harmony, we have a listening duration of about 90 minutes, and the plus 70 and the plus 90 stream, they listen to 10 minutes longer, it's 100 minutes. So it works what we intended. They have less reasons to switch. So, because of the system has music planning software and jingle planning software inside, we use the system also to create regular internet streams. And we looked at the workflow of producing a radio. And most of the things, standard things DJ does or the music editor do, we build with algorithms like this. We have a program, Top 40 show on Saturdays with the DJ Stephen Holler at FFH. And after his show, he records and uploads all his moderations to the system. And we have a stream Top 40, which is interactive because the listeners can vote all the time. And when one Top 40 is rolled down, we count the votes and create the new playlist. And then, rule-based, the system looks when it's time to place the next moderation. Here, for example, for George Ezra, the system looks, is there moderation? Yes, we have. We put it on the ramp. The system recognizes, oh, the ramp's too short, and takes the music bed, lays it under the voice, and places after the moderation a dropper for the position to say, this is number 19, George Ezra. So we have a dynamically built playlist with user interaction and our DJ on it continuously. This is the front end so that you can see how the users can vote. You can give us a thumbs up, green, or a thumbs down, don't like the song. And we have a top 40 program for FFH, the live charts for the youth station. And last year we started a top 1000 program with the same technology. This is a cool one. We call it FFH Leider Geil. Leider Geil means very cool music of the last 5 decades. And 2 songs are always battling on the front-end interface against each other. And the song with the most votes is being played. So what we see in parties, people were with their smartphone and battle against each other and look, can we get the Michael Jackson to be played? Huh? So there is a community, and the webpage of this radio program has been shared 15,000 times. I looked this morning.
Roger.
Yeah.
We have to wrap up.
Yes.
Thank you.
We're creating lots of stations, and then we know we had to invent a recommendation system to present our listeners these streams which suit most for them. And this is the Radio Creator Recommender. I go fast through it because a bit late. A user that comes to us, tells us what music he likes with thumbs up, thumbs down, and our engine looks which of the channels suit best for them, and then we present them the recommendations. This is like on the app, but more important and more useful, it is in the car, because nobody can scroll through 80 stations, so we present them the 5 ones which suit best for them. And that's what I told. We're also able to add synthetic voices, but in these days you heard a lot of it. I don't have to tell about that. That's our system, and if you want to know more, visit our website or get in touch with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Roger. Sorry. I'm always the bad guy who has to say, wrap it up. Very quickly, super successful. If you have questions, talk to Roger. Maybe we have time in the end. Frankly, I don't think so, but we'll do our best. Next up is super interesting and super successful podcast project from Italy, from Rai. Please welcome Andrea Borgnino.
Hello, thanks to all. So I need the clicker. So I want to tell this 10-minute story, a successful story about the podcast. I am the head of Rai Play Sound. Rai Play Sound is the Italian public radio audio platform. we steal the name from BBC Sound, but I discovered that we are not the only one. There is also the Air Sound. There are a lot of platforms that steal the name from BBC Sound. So this is the platform. It's relatively young, born in December 2021. We have a website. We have an app. The app is also working in Apple Card, Android Auto. So we have all the full offer to our for the Italian market. The problem was try to find a good content for launch this new platform. In Italy, podcasting is going very, very well, and the podcast crime, the true crime podcasts are the most successful. As all, maybe as on Europe. And we discovered that a lot of Italian, maybe you know that Italy is full of traffic jam. We have a lot of listening in radio still because of the traffic jam. And we discovered that a lot of Italians just switch from radio to podcast, but not to podcast, to crime podcast. So in the beginning of this new job for me was like a nightmare to try to discover, to find a new crime, a true crime that can work. Finally, a friend, a very good friend, offered to me a story that maybe can work. The problem that was a very good story, this is the story, is the story of Lorenzo. Lorenzo is a bank thief. You can read the story. He's the son of the thief. He entered in the prison when he was a child, and then he started very quickly to become a thief. When he was 14, he made his first bank robbery. And after a long career of thief and a lot of jail, the incredible thing of this story is that Lorenzo started complete different life. Now is a consultant that helps people outside the prison to find job. So it's a good story. It's a true crime story with a lot of crime inside, but it's also something nice to spread around more for a public broadcaster as right. But the problem of this story was there was just a long interview. Lorenzo don't want to use any fiction. Lorenzo wants just to tell his story by itself to another guy. So we start to produce the podcast, and we made like 29 hours of interview, maybe a bit long. But the incredible that working with this interview, we discovered the voice of Lorenzo and the voice of the author that is called Mauro Pescio works, because the story was so strong, also was a real, true story. There was no fiction around. Everything that Lorenzo was saying was real. Also, we have we use also some lawyer to try to have some evidence of the story, and everything was real. So finally, 1 year ago, was the middle of April, we launched the podcast. The name is Io ero il Milanese, I was the Milanese, because the story of Lorenzo is strange, because he born in Milano, but the family came from Sicily, and from Milano he moved to Sicily. But in Sicily, without a Sicilian accent, you are not a Sicilian, you are a Milanese. So his criminal name was the Milanese. And all the story is about Io ero il Milanese, I was the Milanese. So a story that a man could try to change his behavior. So this is the page of Right Place Sound, where we publish the Milanese podcast. As you can see, is a long story. It's 14 episodes of 45 minutes, more than 10 hours of podcast. Someone say this is an audiobooks, this is not a podcast. And also, it's 10 hours of just two voices, without music, without nothing. A little bit of music, without nothing. And everyone say to me, you are crazy. Will never work. It's a bullshit. Yes, trust me. Also my director, because we work together, but I work completely alone with Lorenzo and Mauro. So just maybe 4 people listen the podcast inside right before the publication. So was something also was thrilling to put on the website. And then after a few weeks, we put also on Spotify. But we don't put all the episodes in Spotify. The idea was, if it's working, if the podcast work, people will find it on Spotify and maybe jump to I. So we put on Spotify only 7 of the 15 episode, or the 14 episode. And we put a little voice at the end of the podcast on Spotify, say, if you want to listen all the podcast, go to Right Play Sound. And it works. So I want just to I want just to show you, but it's a video with a voice, just 2 minutes of the podcast. We have English subtitle, just to have the idea how simple is the play. Just 2 voices.
Questo è il caso di risentirlo.
E uno dice che aveva una faccia troppo bella, aveva una faccia sorridente, e mi guarda e mi dice aspetto un bambino. Ero 2 mesi che mi avevano arrestato.
Quindi viene a sapere che diventerai padre appena entrato in carcere.
Sì, stesso carcere di dove ho conosciuto mio padre.
E chi te lo dice?
Teresa, al colloquio.
Che è la tua compagna ufficiale, Teresa.
Esatto, la mia compagna ufficiale.
Eravate giovanissimi?
Molto giovani, io avevo 19 anni.
Chi è Teresa?
Aspetta, cominciamo un po' dall'inizio con Teresa.
So if you listen, it's very intimate.
Conosco questa ragazza. La conosco.
Okay. If you want to listen, it's in Italian. So this is 10 hours of Italian. It's perfect for the day. So this is the most boring slide with numbers. And numbers, you can read the numbers. I don't want to say nothing about the numbers. The only thing that this is our best podcast ever until now, I don't know. But something special happened later. Okay, numbers for us are very good. Maybe for other platforms are normally numbers, but for us are very good. This is something what happened later. The biggest publishing editor in Italy asked us to make a book. And the book was a huge success. This is the Io Evo il Milanese books, where Lorenzo and Mauro together tells the story. With something more than the podcast. Remember, it was 10 hours, but before was 29 hours of interview. So there was, in the book there is more. And it's nice that Lorenzo and Mauro are around Italy to present the book in this day. But also with Mauro is an actor, he's not a journalist. Mauro trying to make a live show about Io Evo il Milanese. It's an hour show, 1 hour show, and now is going around Italy touring theater with the show. And each time it's full booked. This is a little clip, it's in Italian.
Allora, in tanti hanno parlato di questo mio lavoro come di un report giornalistico, in tanti come di un documentario. Io non ho niente contro giornalisti o contro documentaristi assolutamente, ma ribadisco a tutti che sono un attore, che il mio compito non è quello di fare informazione, ma quello di raccontare storie. E quindi questa sera noi qui sì facciamo la restituzione dal vivo di un podcast, però facciamo teatro nel senso alto del termine, no? Teatro dovrebbe essere il luogo della rivoluzione, il luogo dove uno entra, ascolta una storia ed esce un po' cambiato.
Io nasco dalla narrazione del mio vissuto.
And the show is very simple. It's just Mauro talking about the history and little piece of the podcast. There is no Lorenzo on the stage. There is solo the voice of Lorenzo. And after that, last 6 months ago, I received a phone call from the director of Rai Fiction say, we want to make the TV drama of Io Evo il Milanese. And I say, you are joking. No, it's not a joke. So they are working now. They are writing. Will be a 12 episode on Rai 1, is the main Italian channel of television. Will be ready, they say, for the next year. And for me, it's unbelievable. I have just this photo because there is nothing about the TV drama, just a wall posted, they are working. But trust me, was for me and Mauro, the author of the podcast, was unbelievable. The idea that we start with a simple story that everyone say, it's boring, it's too long, it's boring, it's too long. But at the end, the story goes by books, by theaters, and then to television. So, lesson learned, but very easy. True crime wins everywhere and every time. So, maybe the more important is this one. Life is not a taboo. The idea that a long podcast, a very long podcast, can work. Maybe not all the long podcasts work, but if it's work, it's unbelievable. And also the last, this idea of the multimedia circus. And believe me, for me, it's something so strange. I started in radio 25 years ago, and each radio program just go on the air and finish. See this podcast go into these different media and see people that know this story in Italy is something fantastic. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Grazie mille. Grazie mille. And also thank you for some Italian flavor there. Really nice this morning. Last but definitely not least, and you can see how content is king. If a story is good, it's good. It's the old question about length, right? There are conversations that are 5 minutes long and they seem to drag on forever. And then there are others that goes for hours and you just cannot stop listening. And isn't that magical? Talking about content, how would you feel about making a radio station in a language that you do not understand at all? This is exactly what Czech Hitradio did with Radio Ukrainia. They decided they make a radio station for refugees from Ukraine in Ukrainian, but spoke no Ukrainian. Now, how that went will tell us the PD of Czech Radio. Please welcome Michal Merenda.
I'm Merenda. I am a network PD of Czech Hitradio stations, and I have 3 stories for you. 3 stories from the adventure I experienced in last year. The adventure with name How to Start Radio for Ukrainian Refugees in 3 weeks, without knowing a single word in Ukrainian. Let's start with well-known history. It's 1 year and 1 month since the devil from Moscow started the war. It's 1 year and 1 month since 5 million people left their country and crossed the border of European Union. And this is where the first story of mine starts. Story number 1, urgency and mission make everything possible, especially in radio. I think many of your stations had the same question. How can we help them? What can we do for them? What do they need? From my point of view, it's information. It's some sense of community and somebody who is always there 24/7 for them. In one of the first days of the invasion, our boss called us and say, hey guys, we have to do something for them. We need to help them. I want you to launch a radio for them with information. And I asked him, okay, boss, it's cool. When do you want to launch it? And he said, in 3 weeks. You know what, I am a pretty lazy man. It takes me about 3 weeks to prepare a simple back to music element or promotion. And now we were supposed to launch a radio in 3 weeks. But in that occasion, all of us know that this is really important. And in just 3 weeks, we spread the message and started a campaign. We found and trained talents. We prepared all the program stuff like clocks and other things, and sorted all legal and broadcasting issues. And after that, on 22nd of March 2022, Radio Ukraine started to broadcast. It were days and days of many meetings with many relevant people, with Ukrainian embassy, with Czech government, with refugees organizations, with preachers, with experts on work and living, with writers of fairy tales and other stuff. But we succeed. And takeaways, well, you and your people will rise to the challenge when the why is strong enough. And in everything we are doing, we should think big, because nothing is impossible in radio. Story number 2, it's easy to get lost in the translation. If you want to do radio for Ukrainian refugees, you should know the language. And if you do not, you have to find some human dictionaries and translators that will help you. For me, it was the wife of Ukrainian ambassador, Mrs. Perebinis, Natalia Churikova, the former speaker of Free Europe Radio, and Sophie Tatomir, the beautiful young lady who came in the first wave of refugees. Without them, I would be lost, because we made all the mistakes you can think of with people. After the first week of hiring campaign, I have 500 CVs on my table. We chose the 50 most promising and invited them to voice tests. And I recorded the first one, and I was excited because it seems brilliant for me. Beautiful voice, nice intonation. And I played to Natalia, and she gave me a kind smile and said, "Michal, we can't use her." And I asked her why. And she said she wasn't speaking Ukrainian. It was some mix of Ukrainian and Russian language. I don't have any idea. With music, we analyzed many of Ukrainian radios and their playlists and picked the best AC format songs for our new playlist. And I showed it to Sophie, and I was very proud about it. And she said, "Michal, we can't use it." And I asked her why. And she said, "This is Russian song. And this is Russian label. And this is collaborant. And we can't play these songs with lyrics that can't be played in times of war." And of course, with competence. For example, when we prepared some package, we record Radio Ukraina Pogoda, which means Radio Ukraine weather. We choose our best station voice to do it. And I like it. It was super strong. And we played it to our new Ukrainian crew. And they started to laughing. And said, "Michal, you're so sweet. It sounds bad." So we have to re-record it with themselves. But after all of these errors, after all of these mistakes, we have found the right people. People who had something to say, who are part of community, and have passion, great passion, to help their people. And the lesson for any format, it doesn't matter if you are doing refugees radio, or young radio, or rock radio, or animals in the wood radio, you have to hire people you do your program for. And you have to accept them and listen to them and watch them, embrace their worldview, and build inside. And never talk first. And especially for me, don't assume. Don't assume anything. Because, you know what? PD is not a machine for the right answers. PD is even not the smartest kid in the class. And PD, and none of you, are not a listener. It's not a listener. PD should search for the right people and search for the right questions. And the last story I love most because it's romantic, falling in love with radio again. They did it. They have their audiences, they have their followers, they are preparing fantastic content, and I'm really proud about them. And refugees did it. They found a new home here, and I think many of them will stay with us forever. It was a great lesson that helps me to think about the radio again, about the spirit of radio. Why was the radio invented and why was it developed? It was to help and connect people, to spread and share essential information. It's the feeling of connection, like when your speaker starts to cry in live broadcasting because he's touched by a listener's story, or when a listener calls you to studio and said, "Hey guys, you changed my mood, you changed my day, you changed my life. I love you, you are my friends." I think all of you know what I'm talking about. The feeling of connection. The feeling that is sometimes lost in the format. We are dealing with clocks, music tests, and other stuff, which is important, but the spirit of radio is somewhere else. I think about it whenever I'm doing promotion, preparation, or air checks with speakers, and I think it helps me a lot. So, thank you for listening to this little guide I hope you will never use. Then enjoy the rest of this fantastic action and enjoy the Prague. Thank you.
Thank you, Michal. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was quite impressive, not only because there were a lot of things to be learned, whether you make radio for Ukrainians or not. Listen first, for example, was a good one, I guess, or never assume. But also, what I found most impressive is they could have just said, let's not do this, it's a lot of work. Come on, nobody's waiting for this. It probably doesn't help with the ratings. It certainly doesn't make money. Why should we do this in the first place? And they did it still, all through the end and all through this. Well done. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we don't have time for official questions right now because the next session's about to start. If you do want to know anything about them, they're still around. Find them, ask. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of the conference.